Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home on the brave on a beautiful March the 24th, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C, will be doing some more work down south, and he'll be calling in sometime later this week. We know it's all fair and love and war. I think he found the gold. Big C, let us know where the gold is. I know he's going to tell me a little bit later. I do want to say Big C Sports is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Big C Sports, also powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Man, there's a lot of good news coming out of Congress. Today, this week, will be a beautiful week for all of the universe, as we're getting that word that we have some agreement, like the Team of Rivals, Abraham Lincoln's favorite book. We have some agreement on this coronavirus stimulus package, but I want to make sure that in the meantime, we still pay homage to our military veterans. They always have a need to feel appreciated, and also we all need somebody to lean on. At times in our lives, we all do. The Veterans Crisis Hotline, they are experienced in helping veterans and their loved ones. You can call 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And they have people who are actually trained to give you the help and the assistance that you need. And that's for family and also anyone definitely dealing with a veteran that served this great country. I am so happy to announce we are launching a real estate TV show already underway in some markets in the spring of 2020. The goal is simply to recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's, just like car dealerships. They do it. You see car dealerships all the time with their commercials on TV. Sports companies, sporting events, sports teams, they do it all too, especially when we are playing the games. I know the Olympics, if they were not postponed, they would also be on television. I think someone is starting to put the health over the money. At least that's what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm a bit naive, but I know if you can watch McDonald's do it, you can see the car dealerships do it. Let TV do it for you. Put your TV, your properties together on TV. You can do that with the Big C team. We also are able to do loans. So really looking forward to launching that. I know with everything that's gone on in this country with the coronavirus and many sports leagues taking the Big C pause. They're all taking the pause to figure out, how to address the issue. And I want to do my part, making sure that we are a part of this economy, even though a lot of people are being told, stay home and work from home. It affects media too. There's a lot of things that affect all of us. We're going to talk some more about media today and some of the great baseball broadcasters who made us love the game. We talked about it yesterday. The score is tied 5-4, bottom of the ninth. There's a pitch, smack, hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run. And so a lot of people love hearing that, and that's what we love about baseball. It brings us all back into the swing of things, and we'll be doing that too. Also going to mention someone by the name of Sherman Maxwell, known as the Negro Leagues, may have been the first African-American sports announcer. And then I think it's just some great news that came out of the Oval Office today. The coronavirus stimulus bill will be voted on Wednesday, and they're believing that the bill will pass. And I know there's always some talk about who's going to do what to help our country, and some people don't believe that the government should help anyone at all. And there are people who believe let people sink or swim, kind of a laissez-faire attitude about government. But we know the United States of America is about we the people, and as strong as we are, we're nothing without health. So health is more important than money. But also when you have money, you can afford to get your health. That's important. So a lot of times people don't pay attention to news, and they may only get some of the news from a sports program. That's why I feel very, very vetted, and I feel very honored to talk the way we talk about so many things, Big C, when it comes to sports and politics. GOP senators, they expect that the stimulus vote will be passed, or at least voted on Wednesday. Hopefully that means it will be passed. We're just hoping that this can happen because it really makes our country great, and we all need that. No matter what your political beliefs are, sports will always be something that will galvanize people. It brings us all together. We don't have to always agree, but there's a lot of people that they fought back on mixing sports with politics. Big C, a lot of the stations now in Northern California, in fact, all over the country are talking about, real issues, real talk. There's actually a program on a major sports program. They're actually doing something on the O.J. Simpson story. Who in the heck cares? We're on the verge of passing the largest stimulus in the history of the United States of America. And as we always say, our show is not for dumb people. I'm not insulting people that don't read, but I know a lot because I read a lot. I don't know everything. I'm still trying to learn more, but I love listening to people who are learned and people who pay attention to what's going on. So when I think about some of our sports leaders, and I always tell Big C, it's just my opinion, and everybody has one. I believe that sports can be a vanguard. It really is kind of a religion for a lot of people. Church claims to be the way to galvanize society, to bring people together. You have so many churches in this great country that are segregated. You have people in different political parties, unlike the Team of Rivals, the book that Abraham Lincoln loved, President Obama's favorite book. A lot of people don't get together and break bread unless you look just like the same skin color. We know that. We know that with Christianity, everybody has their own belief in things. We pray before our games, and we also give the national anthem, but then we're told to keep the bright minds out of politics. Listen to this. There's an NBA owner that I have a lot of respect for. His name is Mark Cuban. He's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. And he sent out a tweet just a couple of days ago, and it says, "Dear government, here is why you require companies to receive bailouts to retain 100% of their employees." This is what Big C and I have been talking about for years, not just the last couple of days, for years. And this is what he mentioned that Congress is also paying attention to. The cost of the bailout loan, eventually the repayments will cost the taxpayers less than the cost of government assistance programs for fired and laid off employees. Case closed. That was a tweet from the great Mark Cuban, and he's talking about the COVID-19 letter that he sent to Congress explaining why companies require if they're going to get the bailout, they should have written into any kind of bailout that they do not fire or lay off employees. You don't want them to have the tax break that POTUS already gave them, and then they don't do anything for the employees. Now that's a sports owner. That's a guy who obviously reads. In fact, he was talking about running for office, back in the day, and whatever he does with his own, political stance, that's it. But he runs the NBA's Dallas Mavericks. That's the first sports league that postponed play because of the coronavirus. That's important. I think athletes can be prescient. Unlike some churches haven't figured out how to get people from different skin complexions to sit and praise God or sit and worship together. A lot of people talk it, but they don't do it. They just talk. And they may have one or two people in their whole church that looks unlike them, and they call that diversity, and that's their choice. But this is where I think Mark Cuban is a lot like Big C Sports in his comment. Sports and politics mixes, just like the Federal Reserve. NBA owner Dallas Mavericks Mark Cuban, he tweeted that companies who receive bailouts, they must retain 100% of their employees, not 50%, not 40%, but 100% of their employees are paid the money back. If all of that can come out of the mouths of all of our sports teams, from NBA basketball, Major League Baseball, NFL football, you could even say the National Hockey League, then it would make a lot more salient argument when a program like Big C Sports talks about sports and politics. It's so important. If we could get all of the major national media to put Americans first, urging Congress to act now, that would really help. You can't go to a game if you don't have money. If you're one of the companies that are laying off people daily, and we're being told to stay home, and there's a lot of people that can't go into work because they've been told by the governors to stay home, unless it's an essential job that you have to go to. Restaurant people that want to go to a game, or they'll set up restaurants and have libations, places to eat and congregate before the game, whether you're in San Francisco, Los Angeles, whether you're in Dallas, Miami, you're in Atlanta, you're in New York City. It doesn't matter. Denver, Colorado, Seattle, Washington, Boston, they all have places where people get together and eat before they go to a game. But if these places have been told to shut down and you can only get drive-through food, then that affects them too. So sports and politics does mix. If we could get the billionaire owners of our sports leagues to talk about how their input can help our politicians realize that it's not just a couple of people talking about what's important, that the needs of the many really does outweigh the needs of the few. I think that's so important. Based on what happened today in Washington, D.C., and I want to get into what Larry Kudlow said a little bit later, the White House chief economist advisor. I think it's so important. It really is a seminal moment where, as a baseball analogy, the score is 5-4, bottom of the ninth. The pitch, smack, the ball's hit deep, right field, back to the wall, home run! And everybody cheers. It's like everybody cheers for the home run. We all cheer for it. Home run! The Giants have won the game! Okay, walk off bottom of the ninth. Sports can do that. And politicians love sports too. I want to get into why it's so important, what happened today, and I juxtapose what Big C Sports is doing compared to one of the major sports leaders that's running reruns of the O.J. Simpson case. That's not going to put people back to work. That's just more fear-mongering. But the Federal Reserve Act, and people should Google this, by President Woodrow Wilson on December 13, 1913. The Federal Reserve is a system, as we know it today, was set up in the Great Depression to regulate the big banks, to set interest rates, and is the source of all cash. That means all. That means look into your wallet, like the great Sam Jackson says, what's in your wallet? That's why every dollar bill in your wallet is inscribed Federal Reserve Note. Look at a dollar bill right now. Look at the top of it. The Fed's mandate is to provide the highest rate of employment. You don't think that affects sports teams? With all the sports teams on the pause right now, all the sports universe is doing the Big C pause. Because we got to get over this pandemic. And they're talking about social distancing. So if you look in your pocketbook, the Federal Reserve Note, the Fed's mandate is to provide the highest rate of employment with the lowest rate of inflation. And that's what we say. Look at the money in your wallet right now. It was created by the Federal Reserve. You think you got it from your job. It was created by the Federal Reserve on December 23rd, 1913. If you fund the people and you fund healthcare, you fund business, then you make our society stronger. People got to know that's what it's all about. That's why I love doing the Big C Sports Show. It's not just about seeing who won a game and how big and tall somebody is. I know some people in our media said to tell sports people to shut up and dribble. Think about it. It's so important, I want to say it again. Just like some networks, they're playing the O.J. Simpson saga again for whatever reason, I don't know. I thought if they're the sports leader, why are you playing something that's 24 years old, decades old? Doesn't make any sense to me. But the Federal Reserve, what is the purpose of the Federal Reserve System? Everybody that thinks about money and you go to your ATM machine, or you pay your mortgage, or you go to the grocery store, or if you simply want to go to the game to watch guys shut up and dribble. You can't do it without the Federal Reserve. And the purpose of the Federal Reserve is, it's often referred to as the Federal Reserve, or simply the Feds. It's the Central Bank of the United States. It was created by Congress to provide the nation with a safer, more flexible, and more stable monetary and financial system. They're doing it again as people are watching the old playing of the O.J. Simpson saga. That's a joke. The Federal Reserve, it was created December 23rd, 1913, when President Woodrow Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act into law. It's so important. People got to know that. I know we just want to watch the game, but the Federal Reserve's responsibility fall into 4 general areas: conducting the nation's monetary policy by influencing money and credit conditions in the economy in pursuit of full employment and stable prices. Yes, that affects the game. Nobody's building stadiums without money. Supervising, number 2, supervising and regulating banks and other important financial institutions to ensure the safety and soundness of the nation's banking and financial system, and to protect the credit rights of consumers. You don't think people are stressed out right now about money and not having enough money and being told you can't come to work, and governors saying everybody's shut down for a couple of days or a couple of weeks? You know, that affects people. That affects your bottom line. If you don't have food in your belly, you can't enjoy who won the game. Does money and politics mix? I told you, there's a lot of smart NBA owners, NFL owners, Major League Baseball owners, and NHL hockey owners. And maybe the only time that the majority of people will hear you is when you have a sports station give the announcement, because a lot of guys they just want to know who won the game. They want their head in the sand. This is also another act for the Federal Reserve. President Woodrow Wilson knew what he was doing. Number 3, maintaining the stability of the financial system and containing systemic risk that may arise in financial markets. Number 4, providing certain financial services to the U.S. government, the U.S. financial institutions, and foreign official institutions, and playing a major role in the operating and overseeing of the nation's payment systems. That's the great Woodrow Wilson. He didn't please everybody. Nobody's perfect. None of our presidents have been perfect. But that's so important. And you wonder if sports and politics mix this? Yes, it does. If you read, we got to love our country. And in order to love our country, you can't always listen to the boy who cried wolf, even though he's a grown-up. And you know who it is? Everybody knows somebody in their life that lies to them ad nauseum. That means they do it over and over and over again, and then they wonder why you don't believe them. Well, read the book, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. It's a story in it for all of us, especially when you think about the Olympics, how they decided today, as Big C and I have been talking about for the past month, postpone the thing. You can postpone it a year. They just decided within the last 24 hours, and we've been doing a show on it for the last month, since this pandemic became more widespread. It was never a Democratic hoax. And the same person who cried wolf and called it a Democratic hoax has a press conference every single day. Nobody's perfect, but it's a true observation we all got to make. Mitt Romney knows what I'm talking about. A lot of people understand. When you go to the doctor, do you want the truth, or do you want them to make you feel good? Just make me feel good, doc. Don't tell me the truth. No, they got to tell you the truth. This is so impressive, as one of our major sports companies is doing a replay of the O.J. Simpson saga. Breaking news today out of the nation's capital, the White House coronavirus task force briefing by Larry Kudlow. You know who he is? He doesn't play football, basketball, or baseball. He happens to be the White House chief economic advisor to the President of the United States. Now, I'm going to paraphrase a lot of what he said, because people can watch the news no matter who you watch for your news, and you can see what he said. It's the same thing that Big C and I have been talking about really for the past several months, but of course since 2020. Larry Kudlow, White House Chief Economic Advisor. This year we started very strong, and I'm paraphrasing. We got hit by a coronavirus, phase 1. The package will be the single largest mainstream assistance program in the history of the universe, of the history of the United States of America. Bigger than 40 acres and a mule that we didn't get when Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Phase 2, the states to deliver for the sickly, for individuals, hourly workers, the people that go to games, the people who fill the seats, who buy the concessions, the people who open the bars, and they work at restaurants and they've been told to go home. It provides for them. Hourly workers, families, and self-work. A lot of people work for themselves. A lot of people contribute to this great service economy, whether it's hotels, whether it's cruise lines, the airlines. It's all part of this package. At least in writing it is. Phase 3, a significant package for small businesses. Small business loan guarantees will be included. It's going to take out expenses and lost revenue as eligibility requires retention to maintain people and will maintain their payrolls during this crisis. That means you can't get the corporate bailout and start laying people off. If companies do that, I hope they got to pay it back with penalties. But that's in there. It may not be in the O.J. Simpson saga that some sports companies are playing. And it may go into the face of a lot of people that say, I don't want to talk about politics. If your employees of these sports arenas can't get this help, you have no sports arena to go back to. You have no games to go broadcast. So the dumb people, enough. And for all the people that criticize Big C Sports for talking too much about sports and politics, well, the White House agrees with what we're doing. I'm not saying we're the only one. I learn as much as I can to find out what's going on in this country. This is so important. They want to retain the people in their payrolls during this crisis, which may take a couple of months. This is also important. Top that off with you have direct deposit checks. That means you don't have to go to somebody and ask them for your money, because some people will lie to you. They won't give you the money. They'll tell you, I don't know you the money. I don't know where it is. I didn't get paid. People in business know what I'm talking about. That's why sometimes you got to sue people. But they're saying it's so important to have direct deposit checks of $3,000 for a family of 4, and that will bridge and enhance and shore up the unemployment insurance benefits for those who have lost wages, as long as they're full-time wages too. They want to give you full wages. I know there's been talk about how much money they'll give somebody. I'm sure if you're making $300,000 a year, you may not need the help compared to someone making $30,000 a year. But that's what they're proposing. We have to see once it's signed into law, and Congress is going to make that happen. You don't think sports and politics matters? It does matter. That's what a lot of people are counting on, so they can put food on the table. I'm very passionate about this. I'm more passionate about this than I am about telling you who won a game. Because when kids have food in their bellies, they can think. When a parent can bring food home and feed the children, they can think. This is not that Rush Limbaugh garbage that hates health care for everybody, but now he's sick, and now he goes to the doctor as much as he can because he has health care. I mean, everybody can get on what they want to get on, but I just want to bring this up as a footnote, because health care matters. You got to get people healthy. I know Russia's going through some medical crisis, but he also didn't have much of an appreciation or empathy for other people who were going through similar issues, especially when it came to people of color. And he knows what I'm talking about, but the universe sometimes finds a way to put you in that same position of those that you speak against. Now, the same Rush Limbaugh that bashes people of color is dealing with the issue that people of color need to, call health care. The Trump administration right now, they're still trying to overturn Obamacare, as they're having lacrimose speeches on TV about how to save lives and how they can get masks out to people. You can Google it. I want to make sure that I'm just being able to footnote what I'm telling you. Google it. Google about the Affordable Care Act in the Trump administration. They're trying to get rid of it. And it comes with, you cannot deny people with pre-existing conditions. Who's not going to have a pre-existing condition with this coronavirus that's going on? And I know science will solve it. That's important. Number 4, I want to go back and just retract. Number 3 is that you'll have direct deposit checks of $3,000 for a family of 4 that will help to bridge and shore up the unemployment insurance benefits that people are getting. It's all important. We all need that. That's so important. That's the 4th thing, to bridge the unemployment gap. Because a lot of people are applying for unemployment, and they're saying that this thing is not done by by the end of this week, there's going to be many more millions of people that apply for unemployment so they don't have their kids go to bed hungry. It also has some benefits in there to push back having to pay mortgage payments on your home or rental payments. Well, you got to get that in writing, because sometimes when you read The Boy Who Cried Wolf, there's a lot of things that are said that don't really come to truth. Now, the Treasury Stability Fund, there's hope that companies are operating very, very well in the beginning. We will help them and their employees get through this tough time and come out on the other side. And they're saying hopefully later this spring or early summer to continue their operations. The income tax to referrals on corporations without penalty. Their student loan interest rate, that's going to be referred. And the principal without any penalties. That's so important. And he wanted to mention that the Treasury's Exchange Stabilization Fund, that will be replenished. That's important. Larry Kudlow, he's the White House Chief Economic Advisor. And just like people that said that sports and politics don't mix, Big C Sports, and then I hear some sports guys too, Mark Cuban, who happens to own an NBA franchise, Dallas Mavericks. I'm glad he's not a shut up and dribble kind of person. Could you imagine if the smart people in our society were just intellectually, I would say intellectually afraid, because they don't want to offend someone who doesn't want you to talk about what's important. Before we take the Big C pause, I got to read this, because this came today. This was announced today, as some programs are playing reruns of sports programs that happened 10 years ago. Larry Kudlow, the White House Chief Economic Advisor. Big C Sports and I talk about it all the time. I'm paraphrasing what the man said so people can do their own reading when you watch the news. Understand that the fund by the Ways and Means Committee and the Oversight Board will be a completely transparent package. Transparent, that means that everybody will be able to see what's going on. Not like hiding the information, and maybe people will let you know if they want to. No, it's open for everybody to see it. Just like a stop sign that says stop for everybody. It's transparent. This is the package. The biggest package in the history of the United States is about to be announced this week, as sports leaders, quote-unquote sports leaders, are playing you O.J. Simpson reruns. This package is transparent. It comes to roughly $6 trillion. That's with a T, $6 trillion. Think about that. $2 trillion in direct assistance, $4 trillion in Federal Reserve lending power, the largest Main Street package in the history of the United States of America. And Big C Sports was talking about it for the last year, not just today or this week. That's important. The largest Main Street package, stimulus package in the history of the United States. That's so powerful. You got to understand that. It's bigger than the game. It's more important than who won the game. It ensures liquidity and cash money for families and small businesses, individuals, unemployed Americans, to keep this country going. But it's going to be weeks, a month to get back on our feet, and he thinks that we can. And I just hope and pray that the White House Chief Economist Larry Kudlow is right. I hope that he's right. We all have, at some time in our lives, been blessed to have grandparents and parents. Some of our elderly citizens of our society, they need this more than some corporation needs a tax break. But it's going to be both. They need it. Our hospitals need it. Our doctors need it. Our scientists need it. They all need it. If you're just a knucklehead and you want to know who won a game, you need it too. Because the job that you go to earn your money, remember, that's all printed by the Federal Reserve. You think you earn the money at work. This country was designed for people not to fall through the cracks. I think that's so important. And I'm proud to say that we brought that to you. Before I do the Big C pause, I'm going to come back on the other side and say this. Because as we hear Larry Kudlow speak, and Big C Sports has been bringing this to you since 2015, sports and politics is just real talk. I asked the national sponsors to put your money behind the podcast that's actually making a difference. Not having fake arguments, not yelling louder than the other, not playing old replays, not pretending to have these fake one person is more valuable than the rest of the panelists on the show. That's why I say sponsor Big C Sports. Make Big C Sports your next multi-million-dollar sponsorship. You're giving multiple millions of dollars to companies and corporations during one of the most trying times in the history of this country, and they're playing replays of games that happened in basketball, football, and baseball from 20 years ago. Big C Sports is not doing that. We're bringing you real talk. That's why I say make Big C Sports your next multi-million-dollar sponsorship. You know who we are, and you know what I'm saying is real. You can Google it. Think about that. America is the greatest country in the world when we, the people, are working, and we have health care and real sports talk. And I'm saying that because it's true. It makes me smile. For 5 years, we've been the only sports show in the universe that's done that. To speak about sports and politics with a lot of ridicule. It didn't come without some type of enmity from other people. In media, also, that I know personally. Now everybody's doing it. They've capitulated because we've been telling the truth. Remember we said that history was going to judge people by what they did and what they did not do during good and bad times? And I'm smiling right now because I think that God is great. I've been asking for 1 million pastors to pray for this solution. And I know that they are. I believe that we can all have opinions and we can criticize, but let's have a solution. I'm going to do what's called the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. When I come back, I'm going to talk about more than what's bigger than the game. It's bigger than the game. All right, we are back from the Big C Timeout, also known as the Big C Pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. The apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate the growth of Big C Sports. Really excited launching a real estate listing channel. The goal is simply put to get 100 real estate brokers to list their properties on TV. We can also do your loans, your mortgage loans, your refinance loans, your purchase loans. We can do that. You got to be part of the Big C team. And we're looking to bring on 100 brokers to put people back to work. And the goal is simple. You get 100 real estate brokers. Average listing price is $500,000. If each one of those 100 brokers can do just 2 deals a month, that's a lot of money in listing. That's $100 million. Think about that. 100 brokers listing $1 million properties is $100 million. If the average price is $500,000, you list 2. That's still $100 million. A lot of a far cry short of the $6 trillion stimulus package that Larry Kudlow, the White House chief economic advisor, is hoping that will be signed into law this week. They're even saying Wednesday. That would be hump day. For a lot of people, it would really give a new meaning to hump day. I'm going to say it one more time because it's true, and I want to get into a little bit of sports, how people play soccer, football, basketball, baseball, track and field, hockey, boxing, MMA. It's all fair in love and war. But I really implore for all of you sponsors out there that want to put your money behind something that's real. I'm doing this show on my own. I don't have any teleprompters. I'm speaking extemporaneously. I do have some knowledge that I've Googled to make sure that I give you the footnote. Google it. There's nothing. It's called being transparent. And I'm doing this, and you're giving some sports companies tens of millions of dollars, and they don't have anything to say, so they're playing your old news, old replays, old sporting programs. If you're paying people based on their talent, have people do what I'm doing. Just know your stuff and speak to the universe about it. If I'm wrong, I look pretty stupid. I may not be right all the time, but I know I'm a lot more right than I am wrong. And I ask you to Google to check my transparency. That's why we should get that next multi-million-dollar investment that you want to put into a company. It's real talk. I'm going to repeat this one more time. Big C Sports has been doing this for 5 years now. It's so important. Larry Kudlow, White House Chief Economic Advisor to the President, this year said we started strong. We got hit by the coronavirus. Phase 1 of this $6 trillion stimulus package will be the single largest mainstream assistance program in the history of the United States. Phase 2, the states to deliver for the sickly. That means people like our parents and children and family members that are in hospitals, that need to go to the hospitals. Hospitals have to be funded. A lot of hospitals are privately owned. They count on people giving money and donations. They also need a stimulus package from the federal government. That's what the Fed was created for. It's important for individuals, hourly workers, families, for all the work they do. Phase 3, a significant package for small businesses. We got to keep people working. Loan guarantees will be included. They're going to take out expenses and lost revenues as eligibility requires. The retention of maintained people working. You can't get the money and then lay people off. POTUS did that when he would bankrupt companies. He would buy companies and then bankrupt them and fire the employees to give more cash to the stockholders as opposed to the employees. We don't want to see that happen. You can Google that too. It's happened several times. Companies cannot do that. That's in this bill that's supposed to be transparent. It will maintain that their payrolls during this crisis is bigger than sports, people. It will top that. You have direct deposit checks. You ever have to go to somebody and ask for your money? You don't want to be in that situation. Sometimes they say, I don't have it. Well, you don't want that to happen. You don't want to have to go to your employer and say, hey, did that escrow close yet? Did we get paid yet? They're going to do direct deposits. That's so important. That's beautiful. In the land of the free and the home of the brave, that's important. To top that, you have direct deposits of $3,000 for a family of 4. That's important. They're also, the final step is going to bridge and enhance and shore up the unemployment insurance benefits for those who have full wages, for people who've lost wages. We don't want to see the unemployment lines climb. I know every time POTUS is on television, he talks about the economy. He talks about the economy, and that's part of it too. But if you don't have your health, who cares how much money you have? Whether you're Warren Buffett, doesn't matter how much money you have if you're not healthy. I mean, Steve Jobs was a wealthy man. He's no longer here. His money's still here, but he's not. I'm sure anyone in that situation, they would love to have the opportunity to have life over money. That's just my opinion. As we are looking to strip away the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, that's from the administration. This show is more than just who won a game. And I'm glad that we're being vindicated and justified by what's happening with the United States Congress. And I just hope this bill passes tomorrow. The Treasury Stability Fund, that it's gonna stay there. It's gonna be there. They're gonna help them and their employees to get through this tough time. They're gonna come out on the other side as a country, and they're thinking later this spring or summer, continue operations as usual. So this is not life term. It's not lifelong money. It's to bridge the gap, and it's a lot better to do it this way than to have people laid off and take another 10 years for the economy to get back on its feet. And they're saying maybe by late spring or early summer that companies will be able to continue their operations as hopefully science will deal with this coronavirus. Maybe they can't cure it, but like high blood pressure, maybe they can treat it. The income tax referrals for corporations without penalty, their student loan interest rates, and the principal without any penalties. He wants to mention the Treasury's Exchange Stabilization Fund that would be replenished, and that's important. I know some people don't care about the aspect of what keeps money in your bank accounts. It's called the Federal Reserve. It's so important. Before I close out on a little bit of sports, if we don't have this act, America's going to go into another tailspin. We've already been there. It's just going to take people who are bright enough to figure out how to solve it. And we know that we all have an interest in making sure we all survive and prosper. I know we're going to prosper. I know we will, because they're doing the right thing. It's not about loving or hating anybody, Democratic or Republican. It's about putting our country first. And it's bigger than sports. And the fact that they're doing it, I'm very happy to see that the work that we've been talking about, the universe, has justified the way we cover Big C Sports. As again, I mentioned other programs called The Leader, are doing replays of the O.J. Simpson saga. It doesn't make any sense. And this is the prefaces of the largest stimulus package in the history of the United States. I want to say it one more time, and then I'm going to cover a few more sports. Understand that the fund is going to be overseen by the Oversight Board. It will be completely transparent. The package comes to roughly $6 trillion, $2 trillion in direct assistance, roughly $4 trillion in Federal Reserve lending power. The largest Main Street package in the history of the United States. In the history, that means forever, of the United States. Liquidity is going to ensure liquidity and cash for families, small business individuals, as well as unemployed to keep this country going. And it's going to be weeks or months to get back on our feet, but they're there. They're there to help us do that. I just think that's important. And before I get into a few things that happen in sports, which I feel is so insignificant, this is a lot to me. I was telling Big C the other day, we've heard of a story about the talents this is a biblical story about talents, and there are some disciples that were given talents, like 3 wise men, and the first one that was given the most talents, he was afraid, so he did nothing with it. He hid the money, he hid the talents under his mattress or under a rock. And then the second disciple, he was a little bit afraid. He wasn't really quite sure what to do, kind of like in today's time what Congress is dealing with. But he took some of his talents and he put some out. He invested some, and he was more wise with it. And then he also held some for safekeeping. So he was given some praise. He was praised. And then the least of all, that's what I call Big C Sports compared to how we're funded, compared to the major networks. The way we're funded, we're 2 guys, 2 African-American men, intelligent, erudite, very good looking. But I say we have been doing this ever since we started with a lot of pushback from mainstream. A lot of my white brothers, man, I can't believe you're talking politics. I can rarely find a smart guy that's not talking about politics and sports now. There's still some dumb guys out there that don't read, and they're playing your replays as if you're not smart enough to know what's going on. But it's important I say this, because the talents that were given to the disciple, the one that was given the least did the most. And he pleased. He was more pleased with the disciples that were given the least but did the most. That's why I'm saying to you, corporations, put multiple millions of dollars behind the Big C Sports podcast. You can Google what we've done. We're not for everybody. If you don't read, you might be offended. You might think, there's some uppity blankety blanks. Not uppity, we just love this country. It's important. So again, I ask national sponsors to put your multiple million-dollar sponsorship packages behind Big C Sports podcast, not companies giving you replays of sports programs from 20 years ago, and companies that actually make a difference. That's what we're doing. We're not having fake arguments. We're not playing old replays. We're not pretending to be one person's more important than the other. So if I shout louder than you, then I'm right. No, you can be ignorant and loud, but you can be quiet and honest. That's why we say Google what we say. It's so important. That's why I say sponsor Big C Sports. Make Big C Sports your next multi-million-dollar sponsorship. We deserve it. We've earned it compared to some of the other guys that you're giving a lot of money to, like the talents. And they're hiding their talents. They don't talk about anything that's real. You can see I'm very passionate about what I do. It comes from my higher self. It's just real. It's how I feel. Making Big C Sports your next multi-million-dollar sponsorship, you get more of what the Congress is doing today. Is real talk. It's things that people can Google. Things that you can count on. It's the real McCoy. When you got food in your belly and you got a healthcare system, so when our parents get sick and we're not having these Malthusian conversations about, well, we can't save everybody, but some people, we just can't help them. No, you can help anybody that medical science can help. If someone's 90 years old, maybe they want to be 100. Don't have this Malthusian talk about, we can't help the elderly because, they're already old. And some people have been saying that garbage, and I don't like that at all. I don't think God likes it either. Only God decides how long we live. So that next multiple million-dollar sponsorship, why Big C Sports? I'm telling you why. We've just told you. America's the greatest country in the world, in my opinion. That's jingoistic, but I think it's true. When you look at what's going to happen this week, when we the people are working and we have health care, and don't let the current administration strip Obamacare, telling you they love you, but they're going to take away your health care. You know now why you have Andrew Cuomo in New York saying we need the supplies, we need it now. That's what the federal government does. Don't wait on private industry. Private industry can build stadiums and football ballparks and baseball ballparks and basketball arenas, but it takes the government to make sure that our infrastructure is safe. If the private citizens want to kick into, that's fine. It's important. And Big C Sports has been bringing that to you. Yeah, I'm on my soapbox because we've been vilified by a lot of people, but vindicated by our stature in the sports universe. That's important. You can listen to us all over the world, not just in some small geographical area. That's why I'm saying, for you corporations out there that really want to give good news that makes you look honest and like you're not a knucklehead company giving away money to corporations that are playing replays from 30 years old, you look more prescient. Just like the talents. We've been given the least compared to the mainstream corporations, but we're giving you the most factual work, and you can Google that too. That's why I say Big C Sports is the only sports show in the universe to speak about sports and politics with ridicule, but now everybody's doing it. You can Google it. I say God is great. I've been asking 1 million pastors to pray for a solution, and I believe it's coming to fruition. I just believe that. I just love that. I also want to mention this before I get on a few things that are sports related. POTUS is still trying to abandon the Obamacare Act that would hurt tens of millions of Americans. We can't let that happen. We just can't. I was listening to Dr. Fauci. I believe in math and science. Dr. Fauci is the director for the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. He can't please everybody. Neither can Surgeon General Jerome Adams. They can't please everybody, but they are saying go to coronavirus.gov. Keep your family safe. You got to know what's going on. And whether this is over by Easter or not, the boy who cried wolf may have spoken again. It seems like a fallacy. I would hope and pray that it is over soon, but you got to do your own research. I'd rather trust science, medical science. Dr. Seema Yasmin, Stanford, California, she's a medical analyst. She also says the same thing. We don't want to sell false hope to anybody. I know there's a lot of doctors out there. Listen to your own doctor. Everybody has an opinion on what's important enough for them to talk about, and I think that's important too. I know everybody wants to know who is Tom Brady going to sign with? Did Tom Brady leave New England? Who cares about Tom Brady or any of those athletes that are multi-millionaires? I'm not knocking them, but if you think that's more important than the largest stimulus package in the history of the universe, then I have nothing else to say to you. I just don't know what to say. But I do say to our sponsors, pay attention. Pay attention to who's been telling you the truth, that who's been vetting themselves. And part of this $6 trillion, $6 trillion. They talk about transparency. Big C Sports has been one of the most transparent sports shows out there. And I believe that. That's why we say welcome to the show. And you're all invited to listen. It's not for everybody. And we know that, but that's okay too. So hopefully this bill is expected to be voted on Wednesday. If it passes, this bill will help a lot of Americans. I just think that's so important. In more news too around the world, as some people don't think that this is real, due to the coronavirus in India, the country's on a lockdown for 21 days because they want to they want to flatten the curve of the coronavirus, even though some people call it a democratic hoax. Remember that about a month ago? And now that same person's telling you it's going to be over by Easter. You believe it all you want, but you can Google that. That's why I say we deserve to be funded with tens of millions of dollars, not people playing your fake O.J. Simpson news. It's okay. But I'm just saying, today is more than just sports, because I have people in my family that I love. I talk to my beautiful mother every day, twice a day. And I want to make sure that she's not buying into the fear monger. She says, baby, just pray. We're all going to be fine. Pray and trust science and trust God. And I love that. But I also love making sure that I say, Mama, I did my part. I tried to show people as much as I can how to protect themselves, take care of my family as well as I can, and point out to other people who may not have someone in their lives who talks about more than a game. I just want to make sure that we're doing our part. This week, Florida governor was sued over not closing state beaches due to coronavirus. Some people still don't believe that is real. They have a laissez-faire attitude. And I don't think that's the greatest thing to do. I trust math and science. Before I close, I want to say the NCAA, they tell quarterback Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback for Clemson University, the football player, do not have a GoFundMe account trying to help victims dealing with the coronavirus. This is the NCAA, and they're on the side of wrong, and history is going to show that. Here's young people, which is going to lead our country to the next generation. It's the young people. A GoFundMe page made by Clemson star quarterback Trevor Lawrence and his girlfriend Marissa Mowry to raise money for coronavirus victims and their families. It was restored Tuesday night after there was confusion. It was a violation of the NCAA rules. Come on, guys. Hours after the page was launched on Monday, Clemson asked Lawrence to delete it in accordance with the NCAA rules that forbid using an athlete's name and image and likeness for crowdfunding. But they'll take all the free money from the labor of playing football, basketball, and baseball. What a joke. They capitulated. You know why? You know why they capitulated? Because it became public news. We got to keep making public news for everybody. That's beautiful when the young people want to get together and help people. I mentioned earlier Sherman Maxwell in the Negro League baseball announcer, and may have been the first African-American sports announcer in the history of the universe, at least in the United States of America. And people can do some reading about him too. It was a radio station in Newark, New Jersey, and elsewhere in the New York City area where Maxwell, he made his mark as possibly the earliest known African-American sportscaster and sports radio personality. And a pioneer in radio's infancy, Maxwell paved the way for future African-Americans just like Big C Sports, such as guys like Greg Gumbel, also Dave Sims, and Charlton and Big C Sports. Really appreciate that. I love bringing that to you. It's so important. I'm happy that this country is doing the right thing. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. There's an app that I really love called Google or Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa. Play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he'll do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Launching a real estate listing channel in the spring of 2020. And the goal is simply to recruit 100 real estate brokers. We can also do your loans, refinancing your homes. We can do a lot of that on the e-commerce side of business. When you follow Big C Sports, McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it. The car company that built the car you're driving right now, they also advertise on TV. And so do sports teams. You can do it too. Really appreciate Mark Cuban. You know, I'm always telling Big C Sports galvanizes people. It's $1 billion industry. But if this bill is signed this week, it's really going to help a lot of Americans. I know I could get on the program today and tell you about what's happening in sports. I know the great Cam Newton, also, his contract was not renewed. He's a free agent now. Former NFL MVP quarterback for the Carolina Panthers. Came out of the University of Auburn. But he's a multimillionaire. He'll land on his feet. I'm glad that Americans will land on their feet. I really want to say what Mark Cuban said. Because if every owner of a professional sports team in this country can use their voice and their platform to speak out like Big C Sports. Don't be a sycophant and don't be reticent to say what's right. You're never going to please everybody. We can all benefit from learning from others. Dear government, here's why you require companies to receive bailouts to retain 100% of their employees. The cost of the bailout loan eventual repayments will cost taxpayers less than the cost of government assistance programs for fired employees. You guys, that's so important. I love what we do on this show. I love what we do with Big C Sports. I'm really looking forward to my partner getting back on the saddle with me. I know he's taking care of some business down south. And I love what we do. I just really do. To me, it's cathartic. It's really cathartic to know that we are those two young black men that have been told, man, don't go so far in sports. I mean, just do sports. Don't go so far in politics. Don't talk about math and science. Why you always encourage people to read? Why you always tell people to do e-commerce? I just want to do what I love, and I love this business. I just love this business, and I love hoping that we can help a few people. All we need is a few good media people to hold our politicians to transparency. And just like a team of rivals, we can all figure it out. We can all make life better for everybody, our parents, our elderly, our families, our children, ourselves. We all need that. Now, we don't always have to agree, but dialogue is great. I know we were talking about some of the top baseball stadiums in the country yesterday, and that's all fine and dandy, but that's before the breaking news that came out of Congress in Washington, D.C. today. I just hope and pray that everybody can read up on what's going on. I hope this stimulus bill is passed into law. I hope that families can get some relief. I want to believe everything that I read. You know, I just do. And I'm asking everybody, I don't know everything. If more of us can get together and not just be that dumb jock that's wasting time on the airwaves talking about a game played in 1990 or 2001, I think we'll all be better as a country. And the sports brethren, they can't call us dumb jocks. They may say that we're whatever they want to say, but they can never call us dumb jocks. You'll see, I really appreciate how we do our program, and to see how even the White House is doing things that we've been talking about. That makes us prescient. You'll see a lot of sports programs doing it now. But we went out on a limb. That's why I'm asking for that next multi-million-dollar sponsorship package to come through. Larry Kudlow, the White House chief economist, the chief economic advisor, he made a big reading today. I employ people, watch your news, no matter who you get it from. Just put America first. We will all do better. I'm so happy about today, and I want to make sure that I keep doing my part. As we always say, keep America safe. Make sure we take care of everybody who wants to be taken care of. Give them hope. Give them work. When you have food in your belly, you can go to the game. You can play the game. We all have time for games, but we need some adults in the room too. We got to have people that hold us all. We got to hold us all accountable. I want to make sure that's important. I know today's show is different, but also it's different that in the first time in the history of the universe, America will launch its largest stimulus package in the history of this great country since the Great Depression. Read about President Woodrow Wilson in the Federal Reserve Act. People keep saying the taxpayers have got to pay for the money. Guys, the money's printed. Okay? It's like a slot machine. It's printed. It's not backed by gold. But we got to use it to help people. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe? And what I'm hoping for is that we all will be healthy, wealthy, and wise, that we all will remain being a great country, that we don't let people starve, that we don't kick people out of their homes, that we don't make businesses shut down and foreclose. We don't have the banks taken over the way they did back in 2008. We want to make sure we do the right thing. We have to hold our politicians accountable. But sometimes if we don't voice an opposition, they don't think we mind. And I think, again, I want to ask the million pastors all over the world to pray and ask God for providence. Ask God for divine guidance. It's okay to do that. We can do that. Our country's great, and will always stay great as long as people are not afraid to do the right thing for everybody. We are the people. I love it. I know it's a sports show, but it's bigger than sports, and I'm proud to be a part of that. Every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide, you can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please just pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.